Um, I currently serve as the treasurer. So my role in COTAD is just kind of handling the money behind the scenes, just making sure that we have everything that we need in terms of taking care of that. And so welcome, guys. We're excited to have you guys for our last on the Ignite series. Next slide, please. So let's just talk a little bit about our mission of COTAD. So our mission is to really empower occupational therapy leaders to engage in practices that increase diversity, equity, and inclusion for a more transformative occupational therapy profession. That goes hand in hand with our vision, which is just a future in which occupational therapy is accessible, inclusive, and effective for all. And I do want to note that we are recording tonight. So please, everybody, be aware of that. This is a recorded session. And our goal as COTAD is just to make sure that our profession is as close as we can to the demographics of the United States. I mean, we really want to push the profession forward to make sure that, not only is this a profession that, includes members of every group, and diversity in all forms, but it's also inclusive, one that welcomes people in here, one that people who might be underserved wouldn't feel like they are alienated, or they wouldn't feel like they are, marginalized by being an occupational therapist. This is a wonderful profession that we are in, and we would love to see it and push the boundaries of what we can do and really make it more inclusive and diverse. Next slide, please. So with COTAD, we have a lot of different subgroups. So one of the groups that in the ways that you can be involved is through the COTAD chapters group. So if this is for all the students, if you're a student and you are at a university that does not have a COTAD chapter, is an excellent opportunity to talk to your faculty and just talk about, what COTAD can maybe bring to the organization. So with the COTAD chapters group, you can go on our website and just kind of find out more information about us. But we really serve as a resource to universities to be able to say that, hey, we've provided these resources, whether it be case studies or whether it be anything for diversity and inclusion, case study library, and just trying to figure out how to handle the nuances of fieldwork and things like that. We have the ability just to be able to interface and be you guys can be a liaison with us and to help us reach that goal of increasing diversity amongst the student body. And then COTAD chapters is specifically dedicated to educators. So in and around just making sure that, we push these initiatives and get diversity and inclusion, equity in the education system for the next generation of occupational therapy students, practitioners, clinicians, researchers, and such. The third leg of COTAD is the MMP program. So it's a minority mentorship program, really dedicated to fostering the next level. So it's for practitioners who are a little bit younger, maybe students in their second years or first, second year clinicians, to be able to really take advantage of the expertise that people who have been in the field a little bit longer can provide. And then lastly, COTAD community. So COTAD community is just really about, as it says, building up the community and using the resources in that regard. Next slide, please. All right, so we just have a few rules for tonight. Our community agreement. Everybody with respect to whoever's talking, whenever we are talking in the large group discussions or even in the small groups, try as much as you can to use I statements. Everyone has their own truth, so we want to be respectful to that. And just remember that whenever you're replying back to somebody, that you might not necessarily agree to what they have to say, but if you could just be respectful for what they have and to view their own truth as their own truth, and not try to, just kind of get into these back and forth. Please allow space for others to finish their thoughts. I know sometimes on discussions, especially larger group discussions, people have a tendency to kind of want to jump in there, and sometimes the conversation can get a little bit fiery, but if we can just allow people to finish their thoughts to their entirety so that we can, have more open and just discussions. And then we want to make sure that we're talking about the problem and not the person. So we just ask that we avoid, attacking people whenever we're having conversations. We really want to be focused on the problem and respect everyone's experience and voice. So everybody has a unique voice. That's what diversity is all about. So really want to encourage everybody to respect everybody's experience. And then lastly, to be if you're an accomplice, just make sure that you're listening and supporting. We're thankful for everybody that's on the call right now. And the fact that you're here means that you want to push the profession forward and to figure out ways that you can support diversity and inclusion initiatives. Next slide, please. And now I'll throw it over to Dr. Arameh, and she will begin with the introduction.
Hi, thank you, Stacy, and hi, everyone. This is so exciting to be in our final event for Ignite 1, and so I'm going to get started. May I go to the next slide, please? Thank you so much. So we're going to summarize kind of every Ignite series that we've had and kind of break down what they were during this time. So this was the first Ignite 1, and when I first thought about initiating this series, it was because I felt such an urge to mobilize and to take action. I wanted OT, OTA students to really see their potential and value in this fight against anti-racism and action. And so COTAD was that platform. And just like that, Ignite was established. This event was the introduction to our series. We were sold out in minutes, which showed there was a need and people were ready to have a conversation. We wanted to keep this a safe space, so we decided not to record at the time. However, the outcome of this event was extremely powerful, and it will forever be in my personal memory archive. The first one was such an amazing kickoff. During the opening, even during the closing, I noticed individuals with so much emotion, crying, angry, frustrated, scared, defeated, disappointed, exhausted, and empathetic. And that all really led to us being ignited. So we opened with acknowledging current feelings, and we wanted to check in, we wanted to listen, and we just wanted to see how you were doing. Oftentimes, when dealing with police brutality and racism, no one ever stops to say, how are you doing? And with the George Floyd execution, it really allowed folks to see what Black people in America have been dealing with since its inception. And during that moment, everyone, in June, right when it happened, during that moment, everyone was trying to draft a statement. They wanted a Black voice. They were seeking resources. They were responding in some way. And COTAD knew that we had to keep the momentum for change and attention to this matter. The first event also provided space to discuss the history of systemic racism in this country. It was a space to talk about your own experiences with racism and police brutality. It was also a space to share how those experiences or lack thereof impacts your daily occupations and mental health. And lastly, we wanted to make sure that you had the accurate anti-racism resources, which we started an anti-racism resource page, and you also had an action plan. It was a true call to action to hold each of us accountable, as well as our profession to engage in and be an advocate for anti-racist practice. So our survey results showed that most of the participants improved a sense of emotional or psychological well-being, and the event increased their awareness of the impact of racism on occupational engagement. It also showed that the majority of participants stated that it improved their ability to advocate for patients and others who are impacted by racism. And a powerful quote that we had from that event was, and one of my favorite quotes, was that speaking up is better than it being perfectly drafted. We don't want to remain silent just because we can't perfectly articulate it. And that's exactly what we knew that we had to do as COTAD. So we left everyone with the task in that first Ignite, and then we continued with the next, and with that task obviously was to take action. But then we continued with the next event, which is really talking about our Black male OT experience in the United States. Next slide, please.
Hey everybody, this is Adam Pearson. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to cover the first bullet and then I'll hand it over to Jabari to finish up some of the discussion. So the second session, as Arameh had mentioned, covered the Black male experience in OT. And one of the things that we talked about for the presenters who were on the call, and then even for some of the participants who chimed in as well, is that there is sometimes a shared experience that Black male OTs feel in the workplace, and that is we are kind of a double minority, in fact. So, you know, most of the field is made up of women or people who identify as women, and majority white. And so Black males tend to kind of stand out a little bit. And there typically aren't that many of us in a workplace. And so we come with sometimes a shared experience, a shared cultural experience, and it's a little bit difficult to bond with others or form relationships with others at times. Sometimes we might face discrimination from either supervisors or coworkers or even patients and clients. And so we touch base about what that was like and how it feels, and we talk through some of the strategies needed in the workplace to sort of move forward. And Jabari, I can hand it off to you.
Sure. So this is Dr. Hoyte. You know, I had the pleasure of joining Dr. Pearson and Mr. Stacy in discussing some of these feelings that a lot of us did feel in the workplace as well as in the classroom. So we discussed that, you know, in order to protect your energy in navigating some of these difficult conversations that might come up, you have to sort of empower yourself and develop the ability to recognize the difference between statements of upliftment and those who are genuine from statements that invalidate you. So some of the statements that we had mentioned were things like, if you protested and said it peacefully, more people will listen to you. It was a joke, just calm down. Why is it always about race? Are you sure that's what happened? And these statements fall into something that we learned about called racial gaslighting. So for those who don't know, gaslighting is when someone psychologically manipulates a person into questioning their own reality and judgment, whereas racial gaslighting is defined as a political, social, economic, and cultural process that perpetuates and normalizes white supremacist reality through pathologizing those who resist. So to combat this, we spoke on remembering that your experience is your own. Your experience is your expertise. So maintain a strong sense of self and do not minimize your experiences. Out of this conversation, we created a Facebook group called the Brotherhood of Black Male OTs to foster connections and have a safe space, as well as uplift each other. So far to date, we've had nearly 50 members join us from all different settings, ranging from students to directors, and it has grown into a true community, and we're very proud of it. So it has been a great experience so far. Next slide.
So the third event in Ignite really looked at the value of interdisciplinary voices. And questions were geared towards ways to dismantle systemic racism in education, research, practice, and leadership. Panelists from different disciplines and backgrounds shared their stories and addressed what they have experienced and how they handle racism in the above mentioned areas. Comments and quotes shared their excitement from different perspectives, but there was one really powerful quote that we received, and it also came out of our survey, and I really want to share it with you guys. And the person said, "I love that you are bringing professions together. There are some conversations that need to be had as OTs, and some that we really all need to have together in healthcare, to learn together, grow together, learn what each person does, and share valuable time and resources. I believe our isolation perpetuates problems and delays discovering or remembering viable solutions. So thank you so much for doing collaborative work. This allows us to go back to our communities and expand reach more efficiently and effectively, more interprofessional dialogue. Please keep up the great work." And I thought that was so powerful because that's exactly what our intention was for this. And we really wanted to elevate these voices, and we want to continue to elevate and partner with our other disciplines and other professions to continue this DEI work across all disciplines. Next slide, please. So today we're at Ignite 4. It is our fourth one, it is our conclusion, and this one is really our closeout. And we're really here talking about our actions, our accountability, and tangible strategies. This event is our follow-up to the charge we gave everyone in Ignite 1, the part to take action. Now this is really talking about how we are going to do, how we did it, what did we do. So Dr. Hoyte will lead us into the next segment where we will discuss what you have done since and what you will continue to plan to do.
Okay, so yes, at this point in time, we are going to separate you guys into a small group breakout. But we do want you to talk about and discuss and start to think about a few details if we go into the next slide. So the first thing we want you to talk about is what has ignited you, whether it was a personal experience, whether it was the execution of George Floyd, or if it was this Ignite series itself that, you know, really sparked this idea for you to kind of join us in this discussion of how we can push the message forward, especially within our profession. Then we want you to describe one thing that you've done to combat racism since the start of our Ignite series. Share two things that you have seen done or found to be helpful in combating racism. And then name three things that you will do going forward. And the last bit, we want you to start to think about what does accountability mean to you? It could mean something different to everyone, but think about what it means to you and who you might have in your life that you can either both hold them accountable or they can hold you accountable, or, you know, vice versa. And make sure to pick one person at the end for when we come back for the larger discussion, because we will speak more on this. So have one person that will represent the group at the end, okay?
Hold tight as you guys get put into groups. Thank you guys.
Yes.
Hello?